Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 526.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because when it comes down to it, you and I, we are humans. We're out there doing our best to build our businesses, grow the cash flow, and yet there's something that we are often seeking. Some of us, it could be significance. It could feel like purpose. It could be many different things. I mean, honestly, didn't you start your business for a reason? And I would dare to say that one of the things that you're after, even still today, because you're pursuing greater degrees of it, is something as simple as happiness. And I have with me today none other than Tal Ben-Shahar. He's the co-founder of the Happiness Studies Academy. And what's interesting to me is there's a Happiness Studies Academy. I had no idea. So I think this is going to be an interesting session of getting to understand the foundation of, happiness. You said, I know you said this at least once, you said you wanted to be happier. Well, today we have someone who's literally bringing happiness to life. So I'm looking forward to learning. I'm looking forward to gleaning some things that can increase the happiness. And ladies and gentlemen, something more than just the fulfillment that we often seek from our own business is what I suspect we will find today. So let's get ready to listen, to love, and to learn from Tal Ben-Shahar. Tal, how you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me on your show.
Thanks for taking the time to be here. I'm glad that you're here. You've gone down an interesting path, my friend, already with this whole study around happiness. So I'm very intrigued, to say the least, and I want to know more. Now, this being your first time here, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else. You ready?
I'm ready for it.
All right. I look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, the Hulk, etc. Because I think that entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, occasionally I can envision myself running around town using our products and services and saving our customers with one sale at a time. And you know what? I'm probably wearing a cape at that moment. Also, though, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. So if you think about Spider-Man, for example, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his own thing, taking some photos so that he could have some extra money to take Mary Jane out on a date. That was it. Then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers he's got a superhuman ability, and he's presented with the choice: does he use these powers for good or for evil? So my question to you is as follows. Before the lectures and workshops that you currently do, before your books like the Joy of Leadership, Choose the Life You Want, Being Happy, before even the Happiness Studies Academy, what I want to know is, who is Tal Ben-Shahar?
Wow. Okay. So I was bitten by the happiness bug, the happiness spider, when I was in college. I went to Harvard undergrad and I studied computer science, and I found myself in my sophomore year doing very well academically, doing very well in sports. I played squash, professional squash as well. I was doing quite well socially, and yet I was very unhappy. And I remember waking up one very cold Boston morning, going to my academic advisor and telling her that I'm switching majors. And she said, what to? And I said, well, I'm leaving computer science and moving over to philosophy and psychology. And she said, why? And I said, because I have two questions. The first question is, why aren't I happy? Second question, how can I become happier? And it's with these two questions that I then went on to get my undergraduate as well as my graduate degree in Harvard Business School, all the time focusing on how can I help myself, individuals, organizations, and ultimately nations increase levels of happiness.
Interesting. I like that. I'm like that. When you said, I got to admit though, when you said computer science, I was not expecting that as a starting point. And I'm like, he just said computer. Okay. So this is going to be interesting, but I love the fact that you were willing to pursue the question. Now, I have a question based upon that. When you say, why aren't I happier? What exactly did you mean at that time? Like, what was the expectation? Like, how did you know why was there even an expectation that you would be more happy than you were?
It was just intuition, a feeling. It's just that I looked around me and, there were wonderful students and professors and everything seemed to be going well. And yet the equation that I've been handed down from, whether it's, the significant adults in my life, from society, from the ether, the equation was become successful and then you'll be happy. Mm-hmm. And I was checking off most of the boxes that I was given, and I was far from happy. I didn't look forward to going to classes. I didn't look forward to my days, and I certainly couldn't see the rest of my life unfolding this way, or rather didn't want to see the rest of my life unfolding this way. And I decided that I had to ask, the difficult questions. And again, intuitively, I thought, I probably won't get it writing code. Why don't I look for it among the ancient and modern sages. And I did, and I looked at Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, read Lao Tzu and Aristotle, and then modern psychology, the research, and actually did find many answers, and I did become happier. And when I did, I wanted to share what I'd learned with others, and that's when I started to teach. And I must point out, it's not that I found the Holy Grail and the secret to the happy life, and now I'm sharing that secret. No, it's a lifelong journey, and I'm still obviously learning a lot and learning from different sources, and continue to share what I learn.
Totally understood. Now, and I think a number of us, those that are listening at various stages of our entrepreneurship journey, we have that exact same equation. I'll be happy when my company does, maybe it starts with 6 figures and then it goes to 7, and then I'll be happier when it's 8. I would love to hear your thoughts on why does this equation not balance?
Yeah, no, this is a very important point. It's something that I've thought about a lot, and I've actually named this phenomenon the arrival fallacy. And the arrival fallacy is the illusion that when we arrive at a place, get to a place, you talk about that 6 figures or the raise or the promotion or the accolades. When we get there, then we'll be happy. Well, that's wrong. There's so much research out there showing that success at best leads to a temporary spike in our well-being. It's not what will get us to the happily ever after. In fact, what we need to do, if we are to experience happiness on an ongoing basis, if we are to increase our levels of well-being, there are different things that we need to do. Yes, of course, celebrate success, strive for success, but that's not the answer to happiness.
Now, you mentioned something earlier when you were describing the state that you found yourself in. You kept using the phrase, I didn't look forward to, and you filled in the blank with different things. Would I be correct or not in saying that one could simply judge whether they're happy about their station, state, or where they are based upon what they look forward to?
That's part of it. That's
Okay.
part of it, but certainly not all. Happiness is in many ways like beauty. It's difficult to define it, but we know it when we see it. With happiness, we know it when we experience it, and we know it because we can contrast it. Meaning, if I always experience the same thing, I wouldn't even know what happiness or sadness is. But because I've had, good days and bad days, emotionally speaking, in terms of my overall well-being, then I can tell when I'm going through good times or bad times. Now, an important distinction to make is between happiness and pleasure. Happiness is not just a
Mm.
positive emotion. Happiness is much more than that. You talked earlier about a sense of purpose. A sense of meaning and
Yes.
purpose is a
Yes.
very important part of a happy life. I have days when I wake up and I don't feel great. However, I'm very committed and driven to do something. There are difficult periods that we go through in our lives, and yet we feel a sense of meaning, and that's important.
Hmm.
So meaning is part of a happy life. Pleasure certainly is part of a happy life. Relationships are an important part of a happy life. Curiosity, intellectual engagement is part of a happy life, and of course, our physical well-being
Hmm.
contributes or detracts from our overall happiness. So it's all these components, the sense of purpose, physical well-being, intellectual well-being, curiosity, interpersonal well-being, and of course, emotional well-being are part of the happiness equation.
This equation is starting to sound like a lot of work, Tal.
But and in a way it is. It's some people expect to again find this holy grail, to get that secret to happiness and then live happily ever after.
Well,
It
that's
doesn't
what I
work
see
that way.
when you look at the commercials, when you see the television, when you're thinking about your business. I know even in my own head that is what did you call it? The arrival fallacy plays out. It can play out all the time. I mean, how do we, okay. I mean, we're clearly addicted to this thought pattern. How do we, get ourselves off of it and onto a more, we'll call it healthy, sustainable train?
Yeah, well, it's to realize that happiness is no, or the striving towards happiness, the attainment of happiness is no different than other goals. I mean, if you want to create a business, um, it takes work, it takes investment. If you want to become a good athlete, you have to invest. If you want to, be able to play the piano well, you have to invest. With happiness, if you want a good relationship, whether it's a business relationship or a romantic relationship, you need to invest in that relationship. The same way with happiness. Now, having said that, investing in something that you care about doesn't need to be painful. On the contrary, that in and of itself can generate happiness. If you're investing in a business that you are, or in an idea that you believe in, the journey can be as joyful, can be as fulfilling as reaching the destination. And that's the goal, to identify something that we strive for, that we believe in, that is meaningful to us, and that we enjoy the journey going there.
Yeah, and I can see that. So talk to us for a second. There's individuals listening who are anywhere. They're at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. They're just now formulating that business, that concept, that idea. And there's also a few who, they're approaching 6, 7, 8, maybe or so figures on an annual basis in revenue, and they're just trying to take themselves to the next level. But you said something earlier that I thought was profound. You said that there were levels of happiness. Like, what do you mean?
Um, you know, Happiness is a lifelong journey. Many people ask me, so Tal, are you happy? And
That's a
and
fair question. That's
it is a
funny.
fair question.
Yeah.
This is what I dedicating much of my life to, and my answer to that is I actually don't know. And the reason this is my answer is because I don't think there is a point before which we're unhappy, after which we are happy. In other words,
I
it's not a
see.
binary 0-1.
Mm.
I can certainly say that today I'm happier than I was 25 years ago when I embarked on this journey. At the
Mm.
same time, I certainly hope that 10 years from now, I'll be happier than I am today.
Right.
In other words, happiness resides on a continuum. It's a journey. It's a lifelong journey that ends when life ends. And in this respect, we can always strive for more. Accept the ups and downs because they're part of any life, and yet the trajectory is an upward trajectory.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. I know there's a number of entrepreneurs, myself included, where we occasionally, meaning often, experience headwinds or obstacles. And those obstacles can come from many different directions. One day it feels like it's a financing or a bank issue. The next day it feels like it's an employee vendor contractor issue. And whatever in some days it's me, I'm the issue. And yet at the same time, the organizations, the company, the investors, whatever the ideals that we are pursuing require us to find a way to still be, let's say, happy. How is one to ignore or still work with such headwind in their way and maintain happiness or state of any positive state whatsoever?
Yeah, no, this is a very important question, and obviously very important for entrepreneurs. You see, one of the first lessons that I learned in my journey is that the first step in becoming happier is allowing in unhappiness.
Whoa, wait, say that again?
The first step in becoming happier is allowing in unhappiness. Okay. Meaning we need to accept, embrace unhappiness, sadness, anxiety, frustration, failure. We need to accept and embrace these experiences because they're an inevitable part of any life. One of the challenges today is that we go on social media and we see other people always smiling, happy, perfect job, perfect experience, perfect family, perfect vacation. And we look at them and we say, wait a minute, this is not what my life looks like. And even though we know that social media is about personal branding and self-promotion, and we only see part of the picture, we know it consciously when we think about it, but subconsciously that's not what we take in. What we take in, their life's perfect, mine's not. Problem. And this leads to a great deal of unhappiness, because we're comparing ourselves to an unattainable, unrealistic ideal. And when we do so, obviously that leads to a great deal of unhappiness. So we need to accept the fact that difficulties, hardships are part of life. Certainly when you're an entrepreneur, but for anyone else as well. And when we accept that, we accept these emotions as natural, that's when we paradoxically open ourselves up to happiness. Why? Because when we accept and embrace painful emotions, they leave just as they come. When we reject them, they intensify. So accepting painful emotions, that's accepting hardships and difficulties as part of life, that's an important first step. The next step is then asking ourselves, okay, so I'm going through a difficult period, going through a hardship, what do I do about it? In other words, what action can I take? So it's these two steps. First, accepting, embracing, and then taking action. That is the best way that we know of dealing with the difficulties, the vicissitudes that are an inevitable part of any life. And once again, as you point out, especially of an entrepreneur's life.
Well, they come in so many different forms and fashions, and some days it feels like they're endless. It's like, I quit. I mean, you feel like you quit 4 times a day. But at the same time, there have been times, and I know for myself this has been true, where I've had those, 6-figure months and in 7-figure years, and I'm still like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not happy? You can still ask yourself that question. To me, based upon what you're saying, that sounds like a dangerous question to be asking.
Well, I don't know if it's dangerous because it's inevitable. We all do that. The thing, though, is that what would be helpful is if we have the answer for it. And again, there is today in the science of happiness, or through the science of happiness, we can answer this question in an intelligent and helpful way. And the answer is that we're not happy because that's not the path to happiness. The question then is, of course, that begs itself is, what is the path to happiness?
You knew that was coming. That was coming. And I was like, okay, if he doesn't, I'm gonna. But yes, I like it.
So, as I said, the first step, embracing unhappiness, accepting it as part of life. Second, it's about finding things to do that are meaningful to us. So we'd be happiest and most successful in the long term if we engage in activities that are meaningful. Third, and perhaps this should be first, relationships. Number one predictor of happiness is the time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. These relationships can be our business partners, they can be our friends, they can be our romantic partners or family. It actually doesn't matter. But spending time with people, face-to-face time, virtual relationships are no substitute here, is critical for happiness.
Interesting. So, I mean, in today's connected world, the idea of what you just say. So, I guess really what's coming to my head is, does video conferencing count?
It half counts.
It half counts. Okay.
Yes, you have two senses, but not all senses. So,
understood.
Yes.
Understood. I had to ask because I was wondering. So the way that you seem to have an understanding of happiness, what would you say then when you've worked with entrepreneurs, been on stage at doing consultations, doing the things that you do? What would you say are, if I asked you, what are the top 3 things that keep tripping up, would-be entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general from achieving and being on this path to happiness? Hello there, entrepreneur. This is Jay Massey. I know that if you've ever gone over to the site, CashFlowDiary.com, you may have asked yourself, where on earth do you get a domain name from? Especially as you are beginning to build your bigger, better, badder business, you need a web presence. You need the email address. You need a way for people to contact you electronically so that you can stop doing the @gmail.com game. Well, the good folks over at GoDaddy have definitely supplied us with every domain that we have ever used. So what I want you to do is I want you to go over to trygodaddy.com/CashFlowDiary. Again, that's trygodaddy.com/CashFlowDiary, because it's a quick way for you to get set up to capture your domain name the exact way that you want it. They got easy search functions, and most importantly for you is that you'll be up and running today. As I said, once you get started, stay started. Don't let small little obstacles of how to get your own domain name going stop you. So again, go to trygodaddy.com/CashFlowDiary, and let's get back to the rest of the story.
Yeah, good. So the first thing, it's about thinking about or asking the right question when I become an entrepreneur. The right question is not where can I make the most money? The first question we need to ask, what's most meaningful to me? And interestingly, as many examples show, very often what is most meaningful to us is actually where we can make the most money. Why? Because that is what sustains energy. So that's the first thing. What is most meaningful to me? In what way do I want to impact the world, other people, my life? Second is our relationship to failure. One of the sentences that I repeat over and over again, whether it's to myself, to my kids, to my clients, is learn to fail or fail to learn. The most successful entrepreneurs, the most successful business people, the most successful artists and scientists are those who have failed time and time again. They failed and they learned from that failure. They grew. This is how we learn how to walk, by falling. That's how we learn how to eat, by making a mess. It's also, by the way, how we learn to be in a healthy relationship, romantic or otherwise. And it's certainly how we learn to thrive and flourish in business. It's failure. I myself am an entrepreneur. I've started a few businesses, and one of the things that I do is I always make a point when I teach to talk about my failures as well, because it's easy to see the successes because they see the business, it's happening and thriving, but very few people know just how many times entrepreneurs fail. And that's no less important to point out than the successes. In fact, it's more important because it happens more often.
Yeah, I did a video once and just detailing like my top 10 failures, because people, at least in my world, are constantly concerned about what happens if I lose money? I'm like, you're gonna lose money. If you don't, you haven't really tried. And I just added up like the dollar amounts of failures and what they cost based upon my estimation in terms of, revenue or opportunity lost, etc. And it was millions of dollars. And I don't know if it helped people, but it definitely helped me, because it's like, yeah, that in order to get to where we are today, those things had to happen for all the reasons that they did. So let me ask you this question: if we're willing to, as you say, accept and embrace this negative stuff, and we get to the point where we're like, okay, it is what it is. You're saying, what can I do about it? My question is similar in the same way that you would attack a computer science problem. It's like, hey, X, Y, Z is not happening properly. You'd be able to break it down modularly so that you could get the software to compile and compute and do what it needs to do. Is there that type of, step by step to obtaining happiness? Like your second question even was, how can I be happier? What does that look like?
Yeah, so there are absolutely things that we can do. For example, and this is based on research done with people in general, as well as with business people and entrepreneurs. Write down things for which you're grateful. In the business context, it can be write down things where you made progress on. So even in the worst of days, you made some progress. You responded to an email. You met a client. You learned something from your failure. So focus on a daily basis, and if you can do it on a daily basis, do it on a weekly basis, as an individual or as a team. Focus on what progress you made. Research by Teresa Amabile from Harvard Business School shows that when you do that, not only does your job satisfaction increase, you become happier, you actually become more successful as a result of that. One of my favorite word in English is the word appreciate. And the word appreciate has two meanings. The first meaning of the word appreciate is to say thank you for something. And of course, that's a nice thing to do. The second meaning of the word appreciate is to grow in value. So money appreciates in the bank, or the economy appreciates. Now, the two meanings of the word appreciate are connected, because when you appreciate the good appreciates.
I like
In other
that.
words, when you appreciate the things that are going well, the progress, things you're grateful for, you actually have more of them as a result.
So, as you're talking, there's many thoughts going through my head, and I'm trying to narrow them down and see if I can't formulate. I don't think I can formulate this next thing into a single question, but what's going through my head is, in a corporate environment or business environment or just, sports environment, we can be very results driven, but yet what you just said a second ago was about enjoying the process and looking at your progress more than just the outcomes. And we can get very focused on the outcome has not happened, therefore I am not happy, not successful, not a whole bunch of nots. And yet at the same time, there's this wave and there's this thought process, well, everyone should just get an award for participating. And I'm trying to figure out how someone like you would reconcile these thoughts.
Yeah, no, this is a very important question in general, by the way, not just for entrepreneurs. So the answer, or a hint for this to this answer, comes from the wonderful book Built to Last
Okay.
which is by Collins and Porras from ex-Stanford. And what they talk about there is that one of the things that defines visionary companies is the following, and I'll quote first and then I'll explain. Rather than succumbing to the tyranny of the or, they embrace the genius of the and. Rather than succumbing to the tyranny of the or, they embrace the genius of the and. Now, the genius of the and, for example, is where having very strong values, core values that are inviolable, and at the same time being flexible around that core. So it's not this or that, it's that and that. So the same with what you just talked about, which is, yes, it is about appreciating what you have done. It is about getting, a check for participation, so to speak. And it's about being hungry for improvement and embracing and learning from failure. Howard Gardner, also a Harvard Graduate School of Education, talks about how the best leaders are ones who are able in their mind to reconcile, bring together two seemingly contradictory approaches. And one of the most important seeming contradictions are exactly what you pointed out. Entrepreneurs, yes, celebrate small wins. Don't take them for granted. Appreciate the good so that the good appreciates. And you don't want to, rest too much on your laurels. Don't pat yourself too much on the back, because you also want to improve and get better. Because when you stop being hungry for improvement, then you no longer have the DNA of an entrepreneur.
Interesting.
It's having both. It's in a way, the appreciation fuels us, and the dissatisfaction guides us.
Wow. So, I mean, the more I listen to you, I can see why it takes, this is a lifelong study type of thing. And that's intriguing to me. And yet at the same time, I struggle for the sense of completion. Always okay, I got it. Does that sense ever come to you or someone who studies what you study? I got it.
Less so, because you don't arrive. Because one of the paths to happiness is really learning to accept the fact that I'll never have that formula, because probably, we're not sure, but probably that formula doesn't exist. But what I can do is do certain things on an ongoing basis that will lead me to becoming just a little bit happier. And little bit is a lot, meaning if you're able to make small changes in your life, for example, if on a consistent basis, and the key is consistency, you're able to appreciate things that you do, you'll actually become significantly happier over a long period of time, even though it's small changes. If you're able to spend a little bit more, an hour or two extra a week with people you care about and who care about you, face to face, not video conference and not when the phone is on, but be totally committed to that person during that 1 hour or two. Small change, but it can make a very big difference over time. If you exercise on a regular basis, that's another path to a happier life. If you're so busy that you're not exercising, and then suddenly you introduce 2-3 times a week of exercise, 30 minutes each time, not a lot, that can make a very big difference in your overall levels of happiness. Small changes make a big difference.
Yeah, I was thinking I heard somewhere somebody said something to the effect of just try to be 1% better today than you were yesterday. And that's what I hear when I hear what you're saying right there.
Yes, exactly that. This is, the analogy that I often use is, you go on a transatlantic flight and you look at the screen, the map that shows the movement, the GPS of the plane, and you look at it and it's not moving. However, you fall asleep and you wake up 3 hours later, and you look at the screen again and you've moved, you've made progress. And it's the same with, the life of an entrepreneur. The day to day, it's very difficult. There are very few days where you say, wow, today was a significant major business changing experience. It's usually incremental, small changes over time. Same with happiness.
I like it a lot. Now, for those that have listened this far, want to find out more, about what you've got going on over there at the academy, or just find out more about what you're doing, what's going to be the best way for them to track you down and figure that out?
So it's all on my website, which is talbenshahar.com. That's TalBenShahhar.com. And there are links there to my books as well as to my online programs.
Excellent. You're a brave soul. Tackling a subject like happiness just seems so overwhelming to me. But as we wind down, I do have a question for you that I'm interested to hear what you're going to say, because I know that there's a number of individuals who are listening to us and they reached what I like to call the precipice of decision, where they were unsure, about their desire to be an entrepreneur, unsure about, I'm going to make those commitments. I'm going to take my company from 6 to 7. I'm going to be a better husband, father, friend, something. But they reached that decision point and they're drawing that line in the sand. But like I know, Tal, that when we reach that decision point, oftentimes we have a companion, and that companion comes in the form of a voice. And it's a voice that reminds us why it won't work, how it didn't work, and who on earth who are we to think that it even would work? I mean, you're going to be happy? Ha, 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 Rhea, right. And for some people, they're related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that today's going to be different. Today, they're going to follow through. They're going to do exactly what you say, and they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
What I suggest that they do is that they commit to the next 72 hours and 96 hours, 120 hours. That change comes through consistency, through ritualizing action. And again, go back to the analogy of learning how to play a musical instrument. Now, you can spend 10 hours today, but that won't make you a musician. What you need to do is spend maybe less time, but on a consistent basis. So introduce new rituals into your life. For example, introduce the gratitude, the appreciation exercise on a regular basis. Introduce regular physical exercise into your life, even though you're busy and stressed out. This will only make you more efficient. Exercise is a good investment. Spend a little bit more time with your loved ones. And again, it doesn't have to be a radical change. Make small changes, but make them consistently. And that is what will actually shift the needle.
I like that a lot, because that's something we can actually do. That's obtainable, and we can start that today. I definitely appreciate you, taking the time to do what you do, to study what you study, and most importantly, asking yourselves, not only just asking yourself that question or those two questions, but being willing to follow them down whatever path that they led. So I also want to just thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here today with us at the CashFlow Diary.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means you need to study this some more. You need to pick up some more happiness, right? That's exactly what it comes down to. And we can all take an incremental step right now by getting over to talbenshahar.com. Why? Because like I know, that there's more to this, and we've just begun to scratch the surface. And that itch that you're feeling of, I need more, well, now you know exactly what to do. And remember, we learned a lot of things in this particular episode, and chief among them, not only can we make incremental changes, just that 1%, what's really key to always remember, at least for me, is that the arrival fallacy is alive and well, but now we can do something about it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.